दरवाजा देख रखो। Shall we begin, ma'am?
Yes, Jeffrey, start.
Okay. Good evening, respected teachers and students. We have all assembled here for this one-day state webinar organized by the Food and Nutrition Department. The topic for discussion today is potential role of vitamin D as an antimicrobial agent. Before we begin this session, we would first like to play the national anthem and then we begin our session. So I would like to share my screen for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. Now, I would like to request our principal, ma'am, Dr. Lona Mukhopadhyay, to kindly give the welcome address. So, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. শোনা যাচ্ছে তো?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম শুনে যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা, তো আজকে আমাদের এই ওয়েবিনারের যে মুখ্য উদ্যোক্তা আমাদের কনভেনার মিস তমালি সোম, এইচওডি অফ ফুড অ্যান্ড নিউট্রিশন ডিপার্টমেন্ট, তাকে আমি অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি। আর আমাদের যিনি আজকে ওয়েবিনারের যিনি আমাদের বক্তা, তিনি হচ্ছেন ডক্টর জয়িতা ঘোষ, তাকে আমি স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি, অভিবাদন করছি। ভিটামিন ডি যে আমাদের খাবার গুণে কতটা উপকারী এবং অ্যান্টিমাইক্রোবিয়াল এজেন্ট হিসেবে তার কি রোল, তাই সেই নিয়ে আজকে আমাদের এখানে আলোচনা হবে। আমি অভিবাদন জানাচ্ছি ডক্টর জাসপ্রীত সিং, ডক্টর তুলিমা দেব, আমাদের টেকনিক্যাল টিমের যারা মেম্বার, যাদের এই ওয়েবিনারটি যারা সুসম্পন্ন করার জন্য আমাদের সহযোগিতা করেছে, এবং আমাদের নন টিচিং স্টাফ সৌহার্দ্য রয়, তাদের আমি শুভেচ্ছা জানাই, এবং সমস্ত শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকা এবং ছাত্রীরা যারা এখানে উপস্থিত আছে তাদেরও শুভেচ্ছা। আজকের ওয়েবিনারের অত্যন্ত একটি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয়, কারণ খাদ্য গুণ এবং আমরা প্রতিদিন যে খাবার গ্রহণ করছি সেখানে তার রোল আছে আমাদের শরীরে, সেটি জানাটা অবশ্যই আমাদের ছাত্রীদের খুবই দরকার। বিশেষ করে মহামারীর মধ্যে গত 2 বছর ধরে আমরা এই যে মহামারী, সেটাকে তার সঙ্গে আমরা লড়াই করে চলেছি, এবং সেখানে খাদ্যের ভূমিকা অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। কাজেই আজকের যে ওয়েবিনার সেটি অত্যন্ত সার্থক হোক এই আমি কামনা করছি, এবং ডক্টর জয়িতা ঘোষকে আমার অসংখ্য শুভেচ্ছা এবং অভিনন্দন। ছাত্রীদের বলছি, তাদের তো আজকে আমি দেখছি তাদের উপস্থিতি আরো বেশি হওয়ার কথা ছিল, যেহেতু আমাদের রেজিস্ট্রেশন কিন্তু অনেক হয়েছে, এবং রেজিস্ট্রেশন যেহেতু হয়েছে তারা সার্টিফিকেটও পাবে, কিন্তু আরেকটু অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স যেটা হয়তো হলে ভালো হতো। যাই হোক, আমাদের সময়ের একটা ব্যাপার রয়েছে, কারণ আমাদের গুগল মিট প্ল্যাটফর্মে যে সময়ের যে সীমা রয়েছে তার মধ্যে আমাদের এই ওয়েবিনারটি শেষ করতে হবে। সেই জন্য আমরা শুরু করেছি। আমি জয়িতা ঘোষকে বলছি যে উনি ওনার বক্তব্য রাখুন এবং ছাত্রীরা নিশ্চয়ই উপকৃত হবে ওনার বক্তব্য থেকে, এবং নিজেদের জীবনে নিজেদের শিক্ষাক্ষেত্রে অবশ্যই তার প্রয়োগ হবে, যেটি আমাদের ওয়েবিনারের মুখ্য উদ্দেশ্য। এবং এই ভার্চুয়াল প্ল্যাটফর্মে যিনি সাবজেক্ট এক্সপার্ট তিনি থাকেন, শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা থাকেন, ছাত্রীরা থাকে, সবাই মিলে একটা কমন প্ল্যাটফর্মে একটি বিষয়ের উপর আলোচনা হওয়াটা সেটা সত্যি সত্যি খুবই দরকার, যেটা আমরা গত 2 বছর ধরে করে চলেছি। এবং প্রতিবারের মতো এবারও আজকের ওয়েবিনারটা অত্যন্ত সার্থক হবে এই আশা রেখে আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করছি। ওভার টু জাসমিত।
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your kind words.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I would now request our professor from the Food and Nutrition Department, Professor Tomali Shum, to kindly introduce the resource person. Ma'am, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jagdish sir. Good evening, everyone, all participants, teachers, students. I am deeply acknowledged and grateful to our principal ma'am, chief guest, and to our resource person for their presence in the today's webinar. I welcome everyone to the today's webinar on potential role of vitamin D as an antimicrobial agent. Today's resource person is highly learned person, Dr. Joyita Ghosh, who is gold medalist, NET qualified, recipient of Young Research Award 2020 from Institute of Scholars. Her total research experience is 12 years from 2009 to till date. She worked as a senior research fellow at Lady Brevon College in the Department of Microbiology. Presently, she is working as an assistant professor in the Nutrition and Dietetic Department, NSH Knowledge Campus, Kolkata. So now we are going to listen from her. So ma'am, I request you can start your lecture, please.
Thank you, Tomali ma'am, and thank you all the organizing committee members for giving me this opportunity. Let me share the screen first, then I'll start my lecture. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes ma'am,
Thank you.
you can start.
So the topic is potential role of vitamin D as an antimicrobial agent. Why we need to focus on antimicrobial agent and vitamin D? Before understanding that, we need to know the background of it. The communicable diseases that including the emerging, re-emerging drug-resistant, foodborne to zoonotic are becoming a global health concern, and it is also a big threat to international security. WHO has declared the antimicrobial resistance or microbial drug resistance among the top 10 global public health concerns. And the multi-drug resistant strains or microbes are the most critical threat to our present healthcare system. So, first we need to know what is multi-drug resistance, which I have said earlier. So when a pathogen goes inside of our body, it multiplies and it causes infection. So for that we go for drug therapy, and we used multiple components to treat as a therapeutic approach. But some microbes can develop resistance. That means instead of giving the treatment, the microbes will have no effect and it will multiply and do the disease accordingly. That means the microbes develop drug resistance. There I have shown about bacteria, how they bypass different ways the antibiotics or drugs when they causes drug resistance. There is efflux pump overexpression, alteration of drug targets, cell envelope impermeability or drug modifications or inactivations or biofilm formations are certain steps through which the microbes adapt itself and goes against the drug therapy or the treatment which we applied. So now MDR associated infections are the leading burden to healthcare system. According to 2019 UN report, it revealed that about 7 lakh people die each year due to diseases caused by drug-resistant microbes. And that could cause 10 million deaths every year by 2050. And also it increases the economic burden in the world. So overall, multi-drug resistance means a big threat to our healthcare system, as it reduces our options, like options of antibiotics, antifungal therapy, and it's also prolonged the illness. High medical cost, easy target for immunocompromised condition, it decreases the effectiveness of the drug and it increases the mortality rate. In India, we are also facing the same threat. In fact, India has also become the AMR capital of the world in 2017. This is one recent report, not recent, it's a report on 2020 when it's released in Times of India News. And you can see that drug resistance is a growing problem in India too, and ICMR also have a big concern of it. Additionally, the COVID-19 pandemic came and it shifts our focus from MDR pathogens towards viral therapy. But MDR pathogens still have a promising role in community-acquired infections and it is growing rapidly. Now we can say that these all are the microbes, the disease, when we have illness, when we are going to hospitals, then only we may be having MDR. But the truth is, the big concern is excessive use of antibiotic in agriculture, veterinary, fishery, making this situation worsen towards human. Furthermore, the contamination of soil sediments, water bodies, aggravating the widespread occurrence of antibiotic-resistant strains in the environment. Also, the significant concern is the huge wastage that is generated by the pharma industry, hospital and the livestock producer with unmonitored quantities of antimicrobials that are stimulating MDR, and it is spilling over into the environment and causing or spreading in animals and humans. So what we say, that through food chain in our gut microbiome, we sometimes having many microbes that have already exposed to antibiotics or maybe become multi-drug resistant. So it's a huge threat to our immune system. So what can we do? We should have better immunity then, because the spread is becoming a global threat. And I have shown the statistics that it is increasing day by day. Also the options of therapy, options of treatments are becoming decreased. So what is a better immune system? A better immune system, we can say, when there is a feature of healthy immune reactions. That means self and non-self recognition, non-self rejection, modified self-rejection, tolerance, coherence, integrity, etc. are the components which a good immune system should have to make a proper immune function against all sorts of pathogen invasion. So, on this background, why we choose vitamin D? Well, vitamin D, if we study, it's in a strict sense, it's not a vitamin. It is synthesized by our body to meet its requirement during adequate exposure to sunlight. So there are many previous research which establish that for the majority of the population, the principal source of vitamin D is not food, it's the exposure of skin to the UVB radiation. Vitamin D can be of two different forms, vitamin D3, that is cholecalciferol, and vitamin D2, that is argocalciferol. And if we see the synthesis mechanism through skin, what is happening? The UVB rays from sun exposure converting 7-dehydrocholesterol to pre-vitamin D3. This pre-vitamin D3 then become cholecalciferol. Then it goes to the liver, and there is one enzyme called 25-hydroxylase. This 25-hydroxylase then convert cholecalciferol to 25-hydroxy-cholecalciferol, and this actually troubles all our bloodstream. 25-hydroxy D is the form that available in our bloodstream, and whenever required, it is converted to 1,25 dihydroxy D3, that is the active form of vitamin D, and that plays the biological role. One interesting things why vitamin D as an antimicrobial agent we are seeing, this story comes in our focus 30 years back, although we know vitamin D for 100 years. So it has been observed that the vitamin D, as I said, the activation of vitamin D2 as an active form, that is calcitriol, took place in the renal cells. But additionally, the extrarenal cells, like immune cell, almost every immune cell has 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme inside of it. And whenever it's required, it can convert the circulating 25-hydroxy D to 1,25-dihydroxy D for their immunofunctionality. And that is the first observation that gives us the explanation that vitamin D has crucial role in our immune system. So, diet can provide vitamin D? No. In Indian diet, according to Indian Council of Medical Research 2010, only 10% of vitamin D requirement can be provided by diet, and more than 90% actually we get it from sun exposure. So, why vitamin D again? To understand that antimicrobial potential of vitamin D, we first will be looking inside the cell. And the cellular functionality which is observed, we will be dividing into two parts. One is the mitochondria. Mitochondria is one of the supreme part of cellular functions. Vitamin D plays crucial role in regulating mitochondrial activity, including the redox homeostasis and protection against oxidative stress. Consequently, vitamin D acts as the key holder in terms of modulating systemic inflammation and mitochondrial respiratory functions. Otherwise, vitamin D is responsible for protection against excessive cellular respiration, reactive oxygen species production, or cellular damage. So there is theory that vitamin D acts as an anti-aging component. What it does, it promotes the activity of autophagy, which acts to slow down the aging process. By removing dysfunctional mitochondria, vitamin D also acts to reduce mitochondrial dysfunction, oxidative stress, inflammation, calcium signaling, epigenetics, DNA disorders, etc. and act as a potent anti-aging component and improve the immune health. Now let's focus on the nucleus part. So vitamin D binds with retinoid X receptor and it forms VDR response element at nucleus. And researchers proved that more than 200 gene is regulated by this complex component. And that is why almost every single cell of our body has vitamin D receptor, because at the cellular level, vitamin D is responsible for proliferation, differentiation, apoptosis, oxidative stress regulation, membrane transportation, inflammatory response regulation, tissue mineralization, and adhesions as well. So we can see after that we have two ways to have active form of vitamin D. One is the systematic pathway where renal 1-alpha hydroxylate converts serum vitamin D, that is 25-hydroxy D, to 1,25-hydroxy D3 and then used by every single cell of our body. There is also another specialized mechanism for our immune cell, and they have 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme itself inside of them, which they can use whenever they need it, and they form active form of vitamin D inside of them, that is calcitriol or 1,25-dihydroxy D3, which further do the immunomodulation and lots of other things. So let's understand how vitamin D acts as an immunomodulator. So we have two different systems. One is innate immune system, another is the adaptive immune system. If we study further, we get to know that vitamin D acts as a bridge between these two systems and act as a modulator. Whenever which one is required most on the urgent basis, that will be understood by vitamin D and it regulates accordingly. The most crucial part that vitamin D took part is the anti-inflammatory potential and the antioxidant potential. And these you can see in this picture. There is series of interactions vitamin D start and vitamin D modulate whenever it is required. So we've said about immune system, we've said about at cellular level how vitamin D is important for a better immune health. Now we will be seeing how vitamin D helps in killing microbes. So our immune cells have many different mechanisms to kill microbes. One of the most important mechanism is synthesis of antimicrobial peptide and targeting them to kill the bacteria, fungus, parasite, etc. whichever needed. There are hundreds of such antimicrobial peptides that is synthesized by our immune cell, and vitamin D modulate that synthesis. So what is the advantage of antimicrobial peptide versus antibiotic? If we say antibiotic, the bacteria can be able to adapt and becoming resistant. But these antimicrobial peptides, maybe more than 500 years, our body is releasing and they are killing the microbes, and that is why still we are existing in this nature. Even still there is many MDR pathogen outside of our environment. So the most important role antimicrobial peptides does, it not only kill the bacteria, it start the host immunity, it modulate the host immunity. It has an impact on different cytokine release, it has an impact on neutrophil, T cell, monocyte, dendritic cells activity. One of the most important antimicrobial peptide is LL37 or cathelicidin. And this is it has a wide range of antimicrobial activity. It can kill many gram-positive, gram-negative bacteria. It can kill fungus, parasite, viruses as well. And this research work started just 30 years ago, and people started understanding the role of cathelicidin and vitamin D in immunomodulation. So in this paper, we have seen that the LL37 or the cathelicidin antimicrobial peptide can be released by almost all immune cells, and it is capable to kill the microbes. But other than that, if you see, as I said earlier, that antimicrobial peptides not only kill the microbes but also do the modulation, the immune modulation, or sending signal for further steps. So that the different steps you can see in this picture that has been modulated by LL37 or cathelicidin. So how vitamin D is related to LL37? Actually, vitamin D is modulating LL37 or cathelicidin release, and this cathelicidin then functions accordingly. And the important role is autophagosomes or autophagolysosomes took place inside the human cell, and this is happening all the time in our immune system. Every time we are getting infected by several pathogen, and our immune system protect us by doing this sort of interactions with them, killing them, clearing them, and that is why we never faced infection. This is also the pathway, and also the research work conducted and till now, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, how vitamin D is working in it, it's been mentioned over here. This whole procedure is called vitamin D autophagy. You can see Helicobacter pylori, their studies been conducted and how it is working. Salmonella, Aspergillus, and viruses also have, vitamin D has the potent role as antimicrobial component. Now, as again previously I said that not only killing the microbes, it also regulates. And one of the most immunomodulation is control of inflammation. And there are different settings and clinical trials shows that vitamin D cathepsin signaling pathway plays very important role in regulation of inflammation in the body. And they already prove that vitamin D deficiency status will weakening this regulation pathway, and that is why infection become very fatal to them. Beta defensin 2 is another antimicrobial peptide that is, again, as I said, there are hundreds antimicrobial peptides. So beta defensin 2 is the second most important antimicrobial peptide, and here again I am showing that it is also controlled by vitamin D. And in the immune cell, whenever this crisis came, they activate the active form of vitamin D with the help of alpha hydroxylase, and that initiate the gene expression of beta defensin, or CAMP is for LL37 expression, and accordingly they go for their activity. So these are about the bacteria or fungal as well. But as COVID-19 came and we are very concerned about viruses, we also know that vitamin D is also a potent antiviral agent. And several research work shows that it not only creates or synthesizes antimicrobial peptides to kill them, it also blocks viral entry, induction of autophagy or apoptosis, and other immunoregulation it also start or initiate. So COVID-19, how related with vitamin D, or how vitamin D protects against COVID-19 infection. Research report shows that alveolar type 2 cells are the primary target cells of COVID-19, and vitamin D stimulates the surfactant synthesis in alveolar type 2 cells and provides protection against COVID-19. Thus, vitamin D deficiency can be a risk factor of COVID-19 situation. Now, vitamin D also protects acute lung injury by modulating ACE2 expression. Actually, ACE2 expression site is the target of COVID-19 to cause lung injury, and then they invade inside the body. Also, the viruses do cytokine storm, and strong upregulation of cytokine interferon production is one very common consequences of COVID-19. And vitamin D do what? As previously I have said, vitamin D is a potent immunomodulator. So it reduces pro-inflammatory cytokine production and increases anti-inflammatory cytokine production. And thus, it gives protection against cytokine storm and COVID-19 induced pneumonia. Vitamin D also enhances cellular innate immunity. Cellular innate immunity includes LL37, beta defensin, like hundreds of antimicrobial peptide release. If we have poor vitamin D status, then these control will not take part, and as a result, COVID-19 virus or any virus can easily capable to escape innate immune response and can cause infection. Last but not the least, vitamin D is protective against our gut microbiome. So we should know that 100 trillions of bacteria living inside of our GI tract, and they form homeostasis inside of our gut, and that is why we remain healthy. Now the changes in lifestyle, taking junk food, taking too much antibiotics, having toxins, lots of stress, vitamin D deficiency, these all can reduces the good bacteria from the gut, and it can predispose the dysbiosis or leaky gut. Leaky gut or dysbiosis initiate inflammation and the allergies, and ultimately it causes the autoimmune diseases or immune dysregulation. It has been already proved that vitamin D deficiency and vitamin D receptor functions have crucial role in maintaining homeostasis in our gut microbiome. So overall, if we say vitamin D has very important role in all sorts of immune diseases, not only of killing bacteria, not only as an antimicrobial component. These are the data I hope it is visible. The ongoing trial is going on till now on vitamin D treatment or therapy, how it is working. We still don't know very much, but lots of research work is going on for this opportunistic way to combat MDR pathogen globally. This is my last slide. I just want to say that it was previously said that India will never develop vitamin D deficiency because we have ample amount of sun exposure and people get enough sun exposure, so their vitamin D will be normal. Dr. Ravindra Goswami first described that no, we have vitamin D deficiency and more than 70% of adult Indians are suffering from vitamin D deficiency. One of the main reason of which is not going out for the sun exposure, having less physical activity, more indoor activity, less outdoor activity, also season, time of the day, latitude, altitude, air pollution, skin pigmentation, and most importantly, the use of sunscreen inhibit us from having adequate vitamin D. Research report says in a sunny day between 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., if we go to have a sunbath or sun exposure at least for 10 to 15 minutes, that will give us enough vitamin D inside of our body that can be used for 1 week and can be stored in the liver. So it's a very simple way of getting vitamin D from sun. At least we need to go outside. But what is going on recently in India? People are taking lots of supplementation. And supplementation is good, but too much supplementation, not monitoring properly, then it can cause toxicity. But sun exposure never causes toxicity because there is series of enzymatic activity and that have negative feedback mechanism. So whenever we have enough vitamin D, even if you are going to sun, expose yourself, but still there will be no vitamin D synthesis because of it's fat soluble in nature, and if we take in excess, it can cause toxicity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. যারা স্টুডেন্ট আছো, হ্যালো, যারা স্টুডেন্ট আছো, তারা কি কেউ ম্যামকে কোয়েশ্চেন করতে চাও? এনিওয়ান? স্টুডেন্ট বা টিচার্স যারা রয়েছে, পার্টিসিপেন্টস? Okay, ma'am, thank you again. It's a very good information for us. Thank you so much. Just, hello, Jasmeet sir, are you there? Hello. Hello, Jasmeet sir, are you there?
হ্যালো,
Hello, Tulima ma'am. Anyone was?
জাসপ্রীত মনে একটু বাইরে আছে। ডক্টর মনিকা বিশ্বাস আইকিউসি কোঅর্ডিনেটর, ওনাকে বলো যে ভোট অফ থ্যাঙ্কস দিয়ে দিতে।
আচ্ছা, ম্যাম কি আছেন?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম আছেন।
I request Dr. Monica Vishwas for vote of thanks sessions. Please ma'am, আপনি একটু কন্ডাক্ট করুন সেশনটা।
শোনা যাচ্ছে তমালি?
হ্যাঁ ম্যাম, শোনা যাচ্ছে।
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me into this webinar. On behalf of Shibankim Chandra College, I wish to thank our principal madam, Dr. Lorna Mukhopadhyay, under whose initiative and encouragement such webinars are held regularly in our college. I offer my thanks to our speaker also for her very informative and such a valuable lecture, and the importance of vitamin D, the medical importance of vitamin D is more or less known to us, but the way she has glorified and illustrated the importance, especially in the post-COVID scenario, that I'm sure will be very, very helpful to our students as well as our teachers. And I also thank Tomali, HOD, Food and Nutrition Department, for her initiative to arrange this webinar. And our technical staff, Dr. Tulima Te, she has been very, very efficient in arranging all these technicalities in a webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. I think.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think, ma'am, Tomali, ma'am, we can end this webinar. Ma'am, principal, ma'am, are you there online?
I think principal ma'am is
Left.
হ্যালো জসমিত
হ্যাঁ ma'am.
ফিডব্যাক ফর্মটা আমি চ্যাট বক্সে দিয়েছি
Okay, all the okay.
তারা একটু ফিল আপ করে দিই
Okay, all the participants who are present here, kindly fill in the feedback form provided in the chat box. Participants who have participated, kindly fill up the feedback form that is provided in the chat box. Okay, so I suppose with this we can end this webinar. Thank you, Tomali ma'am. Also, a very big thanks to the guest speaker that we had today. Thank you, Monica Vishwash ma'am. Thank you, Tulimadi. So with this we end this webinar. Thank you. Have a good nice
thank you,
evening.
Jasmeet sir. Thank you, Joyita ma'am.
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you, everyone. Ma'am, you can leave now.
Yes.